It's time for the Brouhaha Sports Show. Brouhaha Sports with award-winning sports writer Dale McKee and co-host Marshall Wood. Talking sports with the legends of the game and famous sports personalities. Brouhaha! Now to Marshall and Dale with tonight's guest.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of, that's right, the Brouhaha. How you doing, Dale?
I'm doing good. This weather is really nice.
Isn't this something?
It is.
Yeah. I got some stuff I need to burn, but they won't let me. It's so dry. The one thing, of course, I don't mind dry weather. I don't mind dry weather.
All right, well, just put it in your neighbor's yard.
Yeah, my son might not like that's pretty good. Marshall might not like that very much, but that's a capital idea. Actually, most of the stuff I get, I drag out of his yard and put in mine, but what do daddies do? Huh?
There you go.
Kind of sad note here want to address as we get started. One of our listeners and somewhat of Don Hemmeter has passed away. And we want to issue our condolences to his family. He's a big sports fan, big Southern Miss fan like his family. And, Don might be a little, we're going to recognize him tonight when we have the AD from Ole Miss on board, but Don wouldn't mind that. He's going to be sorely missed around town.
He sure is. He was a very loyal listener.
Yes, yeah.
And so everybody's going to miss him, and we sure hate that he passed away last Friday.
Yeah.
We sure was.
All right, this one's for you, Don. Who we got? I've already spilled a bag or spilled the beans, poured the bag out on the table, but who's our guest tonight? Tell us.
Well, we got a former Ole Miss basketball player that is now the athletic director at Ole Miss named Keith Carter.
Oh, boy.
And Keith was a heck of a basketball player at Ole Miss during their heydays of the early 2000s when they were going to the tournament a couple times. Yeah. And he also is now leading a pretty successful sports program up there, and we'll hear all about that.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to that. And I tell you what, I don't think we need to waste much time. I think we need to get on right to that. How you feel about that?
Hey, that'd be great.
All righty. We'll catch up on some other things after we finish our visit with Keith Carter. But let's take a break to hear from our sponsor. We'll be back with tonight's guest right after this break.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
All right, welcome to our show tonight. This is Keith Carter. He's the athletic director at the University of Mississippi. And Keith, we're so happy to have you joining us tonight and taking a few minutes from your busy schedule. So, Keith, in recapping something, since you took over as AD a couple of years ago, maybe 2.5, 3 years ago, Ole Miss has won a couple national championships, so that's pretty awesome. And I think the picture of you with the baseball team at home plate in Omaha should be one of those instant classics, as they say. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate that. It's been a fun run. I mean, it's been great, and obviously we won the women's golf national championship. We also won a cheerleading national championship, which a lot of people don't know or talk about, but we're proud of that too. But the baseball championship was just really cool, and couldn't be happier for Coach Bianco specifically, and 22 years and kind of just some bad luck over the years, for him, and to finally bust through the door and not only do that to get to Omaha, but to win it all was really fun. And obviously for players like Tim Elko and Kevin Graham and Justin Bench and some of those guys who came back to win it, just an awesome thing for them. But yeah, for me, I was a fan just like everybody else. I was enjoying every minute of it. My family and I were in Omaha for the whole time, and there was no way I was going to get through that celebration without getting a picture with the team. So I've got it up on my wall right here in the office and look at it every single day.
How about that? All right, well, listen, also since you've taken over, you've had some interesting topics pop up. You got at Ole Miss through probably the worst pandemic in 100 years, and you had all kind of restrictions, and then you were hit with the NIL, the transfer portal, the conference realignment, the college football playoff expansion, scheduling, and coaching changes, and contracts, and I mean, you've just been through it all. So as we start off, what were some of your challenges during the pandemic that you just didn't ever think that you would be, I guess, taking care of a problem like that?
Yeah, I guess kind of be careful what you wish for, right?
Yeah.
I've always wanted to be an AD, and then all of a sudden it happens, and all this stuff pops up. But no, it's been good. I mean, we have a great staff that's worked really, really hard throughout all these challenges, and the pandemic. Again, there's no playbook for that. There's no manual for how we've done this before, and here's best practice or whatever. But we just did the best we could. We worked with what we had. There was a lot of rules and policies that were changed. For COVID, we were able to to have some extra leniency and flexibility in helping our student athletes and doing those type of things. And so we just wanted to make sure that they knew that we loved them and that we were there for them. And a lot of them were at home, and some of them didn't have opportunities to even have an internet connection or have a laptop. So we had to get that stuff to them just so they could do their homework and do exams and those type of things. And we sent meal cards to them so that they could eat, and just tried to be creative and think outside the box for ways that we could help them during that really tough time. But we made it through it, and some of these other issues that you mentioned, we're working through those as well. NIL is something we talk about every single day. It's a national topic that everybody's trying to figure out, and we're going to get there. But right now, there's a lot of unknown, and we're about 14, 15 months into it, and we're still learning. But transfer portal, like you said, conference realignment, just a lot of kind of heavy topics that we're dealing with. But to me, I kind of look at it as a puzzle that we're trying to solve, and a challenge that we want to be a part of solutions. And so here at Ole Miss, we're going to try to be first movers, and like I said, think outside the box and try to be creative and do the things we can do to figure things out.
Well, who is kind of leading, not just Ole Miss, but all the colleges? Is there an oversight committee, say, for the NIL, or are there suggestions for you? Are there rules that you particularly have to go by? Or is it just to the highest bidder, I guess, would be the best question.
Well, that's interesting because there's really not any, kind of uniform standard of rules or policies right now. Every state kind of has their own situation. Mississippi has a state law that we have to adhere to, obviously, and then there's some NCAA guidelines that we have to, to take into consideration. But, I think that's where we're in a little bit of a tough spot right now because we're trying to, determine how we need to do things in our state, and Texas is different, and Louisiana is different, Alabama is different. So we're just trying to do the best we can. Again, we're trying to be cutting edge and do some things that are creative and aggressive in the space, but at the same time, you don't want to do anything that's going to get yourself in trouble. So I feel like we're in a good spot right now. I feel like we're doing well, and hopefully we can continue to do that.
All right, is there any suggestions you would give about the transfer portal? Because it seems like, is there a time, or is there going to be a time that an athlete can transfer? I mean, I know that it seemed like one year, maybe a couple of years ago, that even Ole Miss was losing some players during the summer, football players, and I would assume that would be hard to replace a scholarship player.
Yeah, it is, and there was actually just some new legislation from the NCAA on time periods in which players can enter the transfer portal and be eligible for that next season, and I think that will help some. And just like all of this new stuff that we're dealing with, I think there's going to be probably several iterations of the policies and the rules before we figure it out and get it right. But I mean, you look at our football team, you look at our really any of our teams right now. There's so many transfer student athletes, and I think that can be a good thing. We look at our football team. There's a lot of those guys that transferred in just last year that are playing significant minutes on the field, and you're going to win some of those in the transfer portal. You're going to lose some, but I do think that for the most part, the student athletes that are transferring out, they're probably doing what's best for them, and a lot of times that works out for the institution as well. So we'll continue to monitor it, and hopefully we can continue to tweak it and make sure that we're getting things right.
Well, conference realignment. I guess started with Texas and Oklahoma coming to the SEC. And what are your thoughts about Texas and Oklahoma and what they bring to the SEC, and how it will affect, say, Ole Miss and even Mississippi State as far as Mississippi schools?
Yeah, I think that I'm really happy that those two schools have joined our league. The SEC already, the most dominant league in the country, in my opinion, by far. And then you had two, impressive brands like that are going to bring, great programs to the table. I think it's really good, and I think it gives us more exposure nationally. I think to your point, it kind of set off a domino effect around the country of, hey, we better get with it or the SEC is going to leave everybody in the dust. And so we're seeing a lot of movement right now. I don't think we're finished with movement. I don't know what that means for the SEC. If we end up adding more teams in the future, I could see that happening at some point, down the road. So it's going to be interesting to see and really fascinating, where all this, ends up. Do we end up with 3 or 4 kind of power conferences when it's all said and done? But certainly interesting to follow and be a part of.
It is. Well, listen, I know Texas and Oklahoma surprised for folks, but I think a lot of us almost fell out of our chairs when we heard that USC and UCLA were going to the Big Ten. So did it surprise you as far as, was there any talk about this before, or did you hear it just like everybody else?
Yeah, I think for us, we kind of just heard it like everybody else, and I agree. It's kind of bizarre, to really see those two prominent West Coast, institutions, moving into the Big Ten. I think certainly it creates some very interesting football matchups, but I do worry about the student athlete experience for some of the other sports. When you're traveling from LA to New Jersey to play Rutgers on a Tuesday night for women's basketball or soccer, or those type of things. So, but yeah, to the earlier question, I think that kind of what we did in the SEC, it really made some of these other schools realize, hey, we got to put ourselves in a different position, and whether that decision will end up being the right one will remain to be seen. But it certainly caught the attention of everybody, and we'll see how it all works out.
Well, with the addition of Oklahoma and Texas, when they come to the conference, either next year or the year after, your future football scheduling. Okay, right now you're usually playing 4 non-SEC games, and there's always talk about a 9-game slate in SEC, things of this nature. But how are you going to be able to get out of some of these future contracts, or is that going to kind of put you in a bind financially on things like that? Say if you got somebody in 2030 and all of a sudden you're going to have to eliminate someone to play, and how far out do you do future scheduling?
Yeah, we've actually talked a lot about that internally, and not really doing a whole lot with it yet until we confirm if we are or not going to go to non-conference games. But there's been some initial conversations with some other schools that are we currently have a contract with that we may want to try to exit that contract. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out, because contracts are there for a reason, and so we'll have to see what that looks like. But obviously, if you add that 9th conference game, you're going to be 1 game over in those years you're already fully scheduled out. So we'll have to figure that out. But that's part of that puzzle we're trying to solve, and we'll get there.
Well, asking you one other question about the scheduling. What about neutral games like Ole Miss has played in Houston and Atlanta and various other places too? But what about neutral site games? Will they still be there, or are you trending going back to campus to play most of those non-conference games?
Well, I think there's actually a trend in college athletics right now to kind of get back on campus. There was a wave there for 10 or 12, 15 years where there were so many neutral site games, and they were great, but I think they've kind of run their course in some ways. And I know for us, as we've been scheduling, we're looking to do more home and homes. But I think, obviously, even if we go to 9 conference games, you're still going to have 3 non-conference that you could potentially do a neutral site if you wanted to. So I don't think they're certainly finished. But I think some of that was already trending more toward campus even before this discussion.
Well, let me ask you about the playoffs. Saints used to have a coach, Jim Moore, on the reporter asked him one day about the playoffs, and he said, playoffs? He just kind of blurted it out like, we're not good enough to play in the playoffs. But what's your take on the expansion in the playoffs and how it would help your school?
Well, obviously for us, going to 12 games is a good thing. I think the SEC has been, obviously very well represented in the college football playoff since it started. even with 4 teams. Some years we've had even 2 teams like we did last year. So, but for Ole Miss, you look back the past 8 years. If it was a 12-team playoff, we would have been in the playoff 3 of those 8 years. So obviously for us, it's something that we're excited about. Probably some new revenue opportunities for our conference as well, which will be good. So yeah, we just got to continue to play good football, and hopefully we can get in there.
Well, listen, I know, especially in the SEC, some of these coaching contracts seemed kind of high priced. So is that going to be the trend you think for a long time? As far as if you want a good coach, you're just going to have to pay for them, right? You're just going to have to pay the money.
Yeah, I don't see that trend changing anytime soon. And there were some huge contracts in last year's cycle, and I'm sure there will be some huge ones in this year's. But yeah, you look back just even 10, 12, 15 years ago, these numbers weren't nearly as high as they are now. So you hope that 10 years in the future that maybe the percentages aren't they haven't grown at that percentage moving forward. But yeah, I think once you get a good coach, we feel like we got a really good coach. You want to keep them, and you want to make sure that they're building something special. And sometimes you get what you pay for, and you got to compensate those guys at a level that they feel comfortable. And certainly we want to continue to do that here at Ole Miss.
Sure. Now listen, you have 18 sports at Ole Miss. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, did I read it right? Because my memory, sometimes the older I get, my memory kind of fades on me. But 16 teams made the NCAA tournament. Is that correct? Of those 18 here in the last few years under your leadership?
That's right. We had all but 2 of our teams make the postseason last year. We had the highest finish in the Learfield Directors Cup that we've ever had, number 20 in the country. Which, to the point you just made, the Learfield Cup is based on 19 sports, and we only have 18. So every year we start that competition, we're 1 sport short. And so for us to finish 20th in the country, it meant that not only did most of our teams get in the tournament, but they made deep runs in the tournament. So very excited about that, and our hope is to continue to stay in that top 20 as we move forward.
Well, listen, our time's about up here, Keith, and we do appreciate you, and thank you so much for joining our show today, and want to wish you the best of luck in your personal career and also with the Ole Miss family, and we really appreciate it, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I would love to come back anytime. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate you.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome back, everyone. I tell you what, you got another good one. You always do. That was a good interview.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. He took a little time out of his very busy schedule, and these last 2 interviews have been kind of nerve-wracking for us because, first of all, I had to do it solo, and I didn't like that. I want you to know that. I needed you as my support.
Yeah. Well, I was with you in spirit. You may not have known it, but I was.
But these athletic directors and these presidents of university, they were on a very demanding schedule. Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah. I can only imagine.
You say, can we interview at 3:30, and they're saying, can't do it today, got to do it tomorrow at such and such a time, and you're going, oh my goodness.
3:32 and a half.
Yeah,
but we respect that now. We do.
And then on the day of the thing that you're getting text from them saying, hey, may have to delay it 30 minutes,
Well, it's not like they ain't got anything to do.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, we're talking about the Brouhaha.
But
here.
listen, I'll tell you one thing about our last two guests, President of Mississippi State and Keith Carter. Hey, they came through for us.
World-class gentlemen.
And, we catered to them every way we could.
Yes, sir. That's our motto.
And I told them next time they're in Waynesburg, we're going to take them to a fish camp. What'd they say? Both of them said, hey, I'm all in. I'm all in.
All in for all you can eat. That's what I'm talking about. Well, listen, you'd mentioned this in some discussions that we've had along the way about we got a big schedule change started up with the Mississippi High School Activities Association football this week. All the games to this point have been starting at 7:30, but beginning this Friday, all the Mississippi High School activities, the public schools, will be starting at 7 instead of 7:30. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. The Mississippi High School came out with a directive to all the Mississippi high school teams that they need to start at 7:30 because when it came out, we just had some brutal heat there about the 1st of August. So they decided to do it at 7:30 because of a couple things. Nationally, there was like 3 or 4 young men that had actually died because of heat exhaustion. And so that was part of that process. So, all the schools were, very understanding about that. It does cost a little bit of lateness getting home from some of our trips.
Yeah.
But it's better than the other.
You can't put a price on that.
No, you really can't.
But this is not just new this year. This is something we've done before, is it not? Isn't this the
Well,
standard?
probably not this long.
Yeah.
I mean, in the past, they'd say, okay, you got to do this for the next, 2 weeks or the middle of September, but not the whole month, like they did this year. Because really, what have we played? 6 games?
Yeah,
6
we played
high school
6.
games?
Yeah.
That's half the
We're
season.
halfway through.
Half the season. Usually in the past may have been, 3 or 4,
Yeah.
So, some after Labor Day, but, I think it's a good policy. I think they did a really good job of it.
Let me ask you this. Does one thing that we noticed too, so far this season, we have a heat timeout in every quarter. Are the heat timeouts going to continue, or does that stop now as well, or do you know?
Well, I think they're going to stop. Now,
Okay.
I use that word "think," but I think the heat timeouts run out with this 7:30 deal.
All right. Well, that ought to wrap us up on our high school deal for tonight. Let's turn our attention to the next level. Let's talk about JUCO football. You have some interesting observations about some of what's going on with Mississippi junior college football.
I do.
You're supposed to. You better come up with something because he's got something. Don't worry, folks.
Well, I was looking at the standings, Marshall, and it's very unique about it. We have 14 teams in the league, right?
14 of them.
Well, we've got 2 undefeated teams that are ranked in the top 5 in the country. Northwest is 5-0. Jones College is 5-0. Okay.
Yes, sir.
They're both undefeated. Then we have 2 winless teams. East Central out of Decatur and Delta out of Moorhead. They're both 0-5. Okay.
Okay. 2 5-0s and 2 0-5.
There you go. Now the odd thing about it is we've got 5 teams that are 3-2, and 5 teams that are 2-3.
Can you tell me what the mathematical
There's
odds
no 4-1. There's no 4-1, and there's no 1-4.
It's all or nothing, isn't it?
Yeah. Somebody, I'm sure Delta or East Central would like to at least be 1-4, and I'm sure some of those 3-2 teams would have liked to have been 4-1.
Yeah. Can you tell us what the odds of that happening are? 1,000,000 to 1.
About as much chance as me winning the lottery, which isn't real good right now. But
I like interesting things. Like
yeah, but listen, just in concluding one thought on the junior colleges. Last week we had a big game. Northwest stayed undefeated by beating East Mississippi. And that's East Mississippi's second loss. So East Mississippi now is going to have probably a battle for second in the North. And this week, Jones and Pearl River are going to get together and probably the 100th cat fight in Ellisville.
Yeah.
So any of you want to see a good JUCO football game, you can go to Ellisville Saturday at 2 o'clock.
Saturday?
And watch the catfish, because Pearl River has really come on. They're 3-2 this year,
Yeah.
just coming off a big win over Gulf Coast. And so I think they're ready to give Jones, and of course, the last 3 games, Jones College has played, been like a 7-point, and a 3-point, and 7-point game. So JUCO, it don't matter if you're 0-5, or 5-0, it's going to be a good ball game.
Yeah. Let's go up to the NCAA D1 deals now.
Yeah.
The polls are the polls out.
Polls around, they're a little different, Marshall.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean they're not all the same. We got some discrepancies.
Well, there's small discrepancies.
Okay, so we're talking about the
Small.
AP and
college, the USA Today poll, which is college coaches.
Okay, so we got the AP and we got the USA
AP
Today.
is people like you, a sports writer.
Oh man, yeah, I pick them, son. I know how to pick them.
And the coaches poll is strictly there's a select member. It's not every one of them.
Like you, select.
No, I'm not select head coach at a major university. But now I doubt if Nick Saban sits in his office and ranks the team, if he's on the committee that does it.
Yeah.
I think there's about 60, about half of them vote on the poll. I think their SIDs do it.
Yeah.
For them and just setting it out. They probably ask, everything. But anyway, so the poll, now I'm going to give the Associated Press poll by the sports writers.
Okay.
They got Georgia 1, Alabama 2, Tennessee 8. Ole Miss moved up to 9th with their big win over Kentucky. Kentucky fell to 13th. They basically switched places, And Mississippi State got into the polls at 23.
And I tell you what, man, they put a whooping on
They did. Jimbo had his tail whipped.
Tell you what, if he didn't have a $300 million buyout, he'd probably be gone by now.
Yeah,
That's a joke on the $300 million.
I think I would ask for some money back from those players too. Yeah.
Y'all got tightened up a little bit.
And LSU is 25th. They slipped.
LSU made the poll.
Yeah. And the LSU Auburn game almost reminded me of the Ole Miss Kentucky game. A lot of turnovers.
Yeah.
One to have the momentum, and the other one get it back by a turnover and stuff. Now, the coaches poll. I said Georgia was 1, Alabama was 2. Well, the coaches see it different. They go with Bama 1, Georgia 2. So anyway, that ought to be ready. And the only other really changed. Tennessee was still 8, Ole Miss 9th, Kentucky 13th, State 23rd. But the 25th team in the coaches poll was not LSU. Who was it? They lost this week, by the way.
Who was it?
Arkansas. They must have had that good second half that impressed some of those coaches.
It's heating up.
Huh?
It's heating up.
Well, high school football, it's cooling down a little bit. And, it's like one of the area coaches told me one time, September football is ugly. October football is good. High school. He said kids start getting, into the rhythm, not as many penalties.
Yeah.
And, everybody's kind of getting on the same page. And so it ought to be an interesting weekend. Will Hall and Southern play their first Sun Belt Conference game this week. They go to Troy.
Oh, boy.
And I think that'll be a pretty
good game.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty interesting for them. Hey, and we're talking about polls. Delta State was 25th last week. They played number 13 Valdosta State over the weekend, and they beat Valdosta 70-31.
Hush your mouth.
And you know what's odd about Delta State? They're 5-0, and that was their first home game.
The Fighting Okra.
Yeah, the Fighting Okra.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Mississippi College.
I call it Okra.
Yeah, we're gonna give a shout out to one of your favorite schools, Mississippi College.
Yeah.
They drove the length of the field in the last 3 minutes of the game, scored a touchdown, went for 2, and won 39-38.
The Choctaws, baby.
The Choctaws are rolling.
Been struggling a little bit,
Yeah.
but that's a big one.
Yeah, South Belhaven won. The only school that really lost a 4-year school in football was Valley. Yeah. Of course, Jackson State and Alcorn had a week off, but Valley, they get to entertain Alcorn this week, so that'll be kind of a Mississippi interest.
Football's wide open, and it's getting time. Really getting serious, but.
What about them Saints Sunday?
Well, I ain't gonna try. We gotta go. It's time to go.
Saints need a plumber. They got a lot of leaks.
I need a plumber. Oh my goodness.
A lot of leaks, buddy. A lot of leaks. Special teams, defense.
Well, listen, we've had a lot of fun, and we appreciate y'all being with us tonight, but it's time to go. But we do want you to know that you can keep up with us a little bit during the course of the week if you're interested on our Facebook page at the Brouhaha and on our YouTube channel at the Brouhaha as well. And we do want to remember once again, Don Hemmeter and his passing, and remember his family in our thoughts and prayers. But for now, it's time to say goodbye, Dale.
Goodbye, Dale.
And we'll see you next week for more of the Brouhaha. Take us out of here, Jamie.
You've been listening to the Brouhaha with Dale McKee and Marshall Wood. Heard Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. on WABO. For more of the Brouhaha, follow us during the week on Facebook and WABO.